With Bryce Young's benching in Charlotte yesterday announced by Coach Dave Canellis, does it signify the end of Bryce's career as a Carolina Panther in the NFL? Ironic considering Coach Canellis announced 24 hours earlier that he spoke of a vote of confidence by himself and the organization as Bryce being the quarterback going forward. Want to find out how this is not all on Bryce Young? Find out next on Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, you guys. Thank you all so much for joining us on another edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. I am, of course, your host, Mr. CeeLo. And before we get started, you guys, I'm sure you guys know all about, to let you know there's not any business. You guys have been pretty silent on the front, but keep watching, you guys. But make sure you guys go ahead and comment. I want to hear your feedback. I really do, especially when it comes to this benching. And I know there's going to be some of you that are not going to like what I have to say. But the reality of it is, I want to make you guys pay attention to a guy who I don't always agree with. But the reality, and there was just to show you guys how brutal some of you guys can be. You're saying that if Bryce Young asked for a trade, it wouldn't hurt your feelings any. I don't think you guys want that. But I am going to, as I said, there's a gentleman by the name of Mel Kiper Jr. I don't always see eye to eye with him as far as his decisions on what quarterbacks are what. I think we already saw that he thought Bryce Young was better than C.J. Stroud, but we already, from this point, see that that's not true. But you can't get them all right. And, of course, Kiper's never gotten the quarterbacks right on a regular basis. But, hey, listen, he gets paid the big bucks and I don't. But I want to play you guys a part that he said in an interview after the benching of Bryce. And I agree with some of his points, and I will let you know what points those are, but I want you guys to take a listen.
Then you go into this year, you change everything because C.J. Stroud's doing so well in Houston. We got to destroy this thing. We got to blow it up and start over because C.J. Stroud's doing so great in Houston. These coaches aren't getting it done. So we bring in an offensive coach who was with Baker and others, right? Bring in a new pass game coordinator, new quarterback coach for Bryce Young. Then we don't play him in the preseason. We play him one series in the final preseason game against the AOGs. None of those guys are playing for Buffalo, by the way. They went one series down the field. They're rah-rah. Great, we got it. We accomplished everything we wanted to. I'll give you a little note. C.J. Stroud played in 2 preseason games this year. Okay, he played 4. Derek Carr played in 2 preseason games. Why? Because Clint Kubiak was coming in with a new offense, and Derek Carr is a veteran, played in 2 preseason games. Bryce Young played one series of a final preseason game against the nobodies on defense for the Buffalo Bills. Does that make sense to you? When in 2 games in, we're saying he can't play? Yes, his confidence was shattered, right? Yes, he does need to sit behind Andy Dalton for a little bit. But to blame this on Bryce Young is ridiculous. This is the blame here goes to the organization, the owner, for mishandling this young quarterback.
Now, you guys heard the great Mel Kiper Jr. He said it's on the organization. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break this down to you by levels. First, I'm going to go with Frank Reich because it goes into a couple of things that Frank Reich did not do last season. First of all, why David Tepper decided, I'm going to hire Frank Reich, a guy whom I know as the owner is going to want his own quarterback. Everybody knows that if you are a defensive, everybody knows if you're an owner and you want your own quarterback, you hire a defensive coach. What in the world look, I'm going to get to Tepper, but I want to get away from that because I want to stay with Frank Reich. Frank Wright did not want Bryce Young. So I will give Frank Wright, credit for one thing. And it's not that Bryce is not better than CJ Stroud. It's just that CJ Stroud is better equipped to deal with what the NFL is presenting him right now when a situation is not perfect. Because I can tell you right now, the team offensively, I don't care what anybody has to say. The Carolina Panthers had some talented players on its roster receiver-wise last year. You could sit there and call it what you want, saying Tank Dell's this and that. Tank Dell is what he is because he and CJ Stroud worked out. They had continuity. CJ Stroud got together and worked with his guys. Even Bryce got together and worked with his guys. But I'm going to tell you something. Frank Wright absolutely failed is the garbage play calling. I'm talking about, I'm hearing, look, this is the same argument in talks that many of the individuals that do radio shows, podcasts, tubers, they're talking the same thing. Now, I know what people are going to say. Well, what makes you any different? Because I've been saying this. I said this going back to last year. When are we going to throw the ball down the field? How in the world? I want you guys to look at a stat. And they were doing this for the 49ers. Okay. This is average separation per receiver. The worst. 49ers are number one with only 2.9 yards of separation of it in its receiving core. That basically means their receivers only getting 2.9 yards of separation on average. Let's look at the Panthers, whom are number 2 worst. 3 yards. And then, of course, you see the Colts, Titans, and Patriots. All basically translate into not very good quarterback play. Now, this is this year. I'm going to go back to Frank Wright. And that blonde, taking a page out of Gordon Ramsay. The reality of it, some play calling. This is where I am at with a lot of this. Goes back to the last show I did with you guys when I was telling you we're doing 4 curls of 5 to 7 yards. How in the world is that how is someone going to get open when they're just playing 8 yards off the ball and they're saying, wait for it, break. These guys are able to play press coverage because they're not afraid of you beating them down the field. The only guy that could beat you down the field, and I saw more confidence out of this Carolina Panthers team with Adam Thielen running those middle crossers. You guys know what I'm talking about. DJ Shark, back shoulder throws and one-on-one throws. Heck, Andy Dalton did it in, was it week 3, week 4 that Bryce got hurt? And this is the problem I have right now. You don't run anything down the field. You have absolutely no fear. None whatsoever. And in order for a team to be, or a quarterback to get anything underneath, you have to make the defense fear you up the field. Why do you think Devontae Adams is able to get such separation on slants, curls, comebacks? Because he's a threat to go up the field. Why do you think J.C. Horn got beat by Quentin Johnston? Because he has no fear of over the top. And it was just a wonderful throw by Justin Herbert. Then here's the other issue that I had with Frank Wright. Outside of his blonde play calling, do most of you realize that the Panthers won 1 game under his regime? Who was the OC that game? Thomas Brown. You brought in a guy who won more games calling plays than you did. Now, I'm not going to say that Frank Wright was not in this. I'm not going to put that on him because I don't know. But I can tell you this, I would feel a certain type of way if I tell you I want this guy and you take that guy. I might feel a type of way because I got to live and die on the sword of that guy. Now, am I saying that's a reason for Frank Wright to just throw the towel in? Absolutely not. You were hired to do a job. And your job was to make Bryce Young the best that you can make him. And when you bring in a guy, and this is no disrespect to Thomas Brown, but when you bring in a guy that has never called plays, explain that to me, Frank. Anybody in the comments, explain that to me. And I know what everybody's going to say. Same reason Dave Canellis brought in an OC that doesn't call plays. Well, there's a difference between Canellis and Frank Wright. Frank Wright was here to bring in the pieces that were going to fix an organization, not fix a quarterback. But I'm getting to that point. And they went out and got Josh McCown to try and fix the issue. But the problem is, when I look at the Carolina offense, and I will be looking at that this Sunday, are there going to be different play calls made while Dalton's running the offense as opposed to Bryce Young? That's a problem. To me, I'm not even going to answer the question of is he being railroaded so we can get another quarterback. Because here's the thing. I am one that everybody says you make the offensive coordinator your head coach. So if you got a young quarterback, that is. So when the prospects come that he has to leave because there's going to be so many clamoring for him to be a head coach, you can retain him. That's cool. I get that. But you didn't see Houston worry about that with Bobby Slowick, did you? I'm just keeping it in perspective, you guys. We were not dealt a good hand here. And the reality of it is, Tepper is a better investor than he is an owner. That's point blank. Because the reality of it is, you do not go in and do football things when that's not your forte. Your forte is signing checks. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay away from that. But the other thing is everybody wants to talk about the talent around. I had my suspicions, but I would listen to a podcast and because my doubts were there. But you guys know I already said early in the year, you have to get your reps in practice. You have to get your reps in practice. But anyway, back to Thomas Brown. The reality of it was that offense that Thomas Brown ran was way more efficient than one Frank Wright was calling. It looked like a backup quarterback type of play designs. The play designs had no kind of flavor. They had a little movement. With Thomas Brown, you saw a lot more variations, a lot of misdirections, a lot of movement. Which leads me to Scott Fitterer. From what I hear, you co-signed on the Bryce Young drafting. No, I'm going to try and talk him out of it or so on and so forth. You just went along with it. And not to mention the other disastrous moves that you've made. Whether it's trading for C.J. Henderson, a high pick I might add. Or trading for Sam Darnold, giving up all those picks and he doesn't work out. Now, Sam Darnold's working out right now, but that's not what we're here for. All the disastrous moves that you made, whether it's Burns or not re-signing Frankie Louisville when we had the chance or letting Hassan Reddick walk. This defense was at an elite status. I will admit that. The problem you had was instead of letting Bryce start, instead of letting him start, Frank, And you see he struck. The offense was just absolutely putrid in the preseason. That's why I was telling all you guys, these guys need to play. And all of you sat there and said, well, what if he gets hurt? His confidence is hurt right now. It's on IR. His confidence is sitting right there, hoping it can be rebuilt. He keeps hearing he's too small. Stephen A. Smith is too small. Every analyst on the planet is saying this guy is too small. Now, let me stay on topic. Let's look to Dave Canellis. As a coach, I understand how important reps are. They are imperative. Repetition is the key to success. Practice makes perfect isn't a saying for no reason, guys. Many of you are going to sit there and you're going to tell me, oh, well, they might get hurt. Guess what? Derek Brown got hurt week 1. Just like I told you guys. You don't listen. Some of you understand. But it's just like Mel Kiper said in that piece. C.J. Stroud played in 2 preseason games, and there's only 3. Derek Carr played in 2 preseason games. Drake May appeared in 2 games. What more does a struggling quarterback, or a struggling player for that matter, need to get his confidence back? Maybe a little inferior competition. Just a little inferior. Which leads me to another big point. You bring in Dave Canellis. He's supposed to be the quarterback whisperer or the QB whisperer. Look, I'm not going to take this man's title, but the reality of it is 2 games and a couple of months in this offense is not going to fix it. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen of Panther Nation, Bryce Young was put in a very bad situation last year, and he was introduced to one this year because he has a defense that has got more leaks in it than an old rusty bucket.
It's not funny, Ed. Hey, shut up!
You can't fix something if it's just absolutely unfixable. Right now, you got a bad defense that can't stop the run. Now, granted, you just ran into 2 buzzsaw run games. I get it. They're really good. But Canellis, didn't you say we were going to run the ball a lot?
Bruh.
The fact remains, we were going to use the run game to set up the pass. I'm not seeing it. And if the run game is not successful, it's because of this. You have not designed shots down the field. None. You've designed nothing down the field. And you did not encourage Bryce to say, hey, look, when this would have been the time you signed DJ Shark back. Now, granted, he's injured right now for the Chargers. But the reality of it is this. You need a guy that can go up and elevate and get the football. I haven't seen you take a shot at Xavier Legette yet. There's got to be plays where you just say, hey, look, Bryce, no matter what happens, if you see that safety, we're going to run this play, given that the safety is not over the top. If he's got one-on-one, I'm going to throw one up there and say, my guy's better than you. Where's that at? I'm going to tell you something. If Andy Dalton comes out and does this week, I'm going to say something's wrong here. I've already said something's wrong, but I'm just making it blatantly obvious. Not lastly, but Next, we've got Bryce learning 2 systems in 2 seasons. 2 systems in 2 seasons. I'm going to tell you who exactly would have worked well with Bryce Young, but Tepper's not going to want to hear it, and I don't care if he doesn't want to hear it. And there's going to be a lot of people in Panther Nation going to agree with me. Coach Steve Wilks. Last year was a wash. And I'm going to tell you, Panther Nation is going to be haunted by the ghost of Steve Wilks, because the fact is, Wilks had this team going in the right direction. And the players wanted to play for Steve Wilks. And you ruined that, Tepper. You ruined it. Which leads me to my very last point. David Tepper.
Yeah. You fucking idiot.
Dumb shit! Dumb shit! Dumb shit!
I don't even want to laugh, because it's so horrible. Dude, why do you have to be like Arthur Blank, Jerry Jones? Dude, they're not winning. Why can't you be like the silent owners? Heck, Robert Kraft tries to stay out of the media, but he's so successful. Now, ever since Brady's been gone and Belichick's now gone, he's definitely not in the spotlight. The Patriots was so successful, they forced him into the spotlight. I mean, listen, I'm all for you giving Matt Rule a shot, because, like, as I said, I'm going to do a show and let you guys know he wasn't nearly as bad as you think he is. He might have made some bad coaching decisions, but as far as player personnel, he was good. Hassan Reddick would have never been a Carolina Panther had it not been for Matt Rule. Remember that. Jeremy Chin, without Matt Rule. Frankie Louvu, without him. These are guys that he spotted talent on. We can sit here and we can question it all day. But Tepper, you need to stay the heck out of football business. Go find somewhere else where else to go. If you can't stay out of Carolina Panther business, put the franchise up for sale. You don't know football. And the fact is, you should have known when you get a lesser statured quarterback, it comes with risk and things you have to get. And then Scott Fitterer is running around here like, oh, let me get a bunch of playmakers that really don't get a lot of separation. But you don't realize that C.J. Stroud's 3 to 4 inches difference over Bryce Young make it different. He sees the line and he's able to get the ball over the line. Do we not see Bryce on his tiptoes? Are you guys not seeing this? Not to mention, Tepper's got enough money. He could have called up Drew Brees and said, look, I've got this young kid. I understand you're a Saints guy, but I'm paying you to do this job. Do you think Drew Brees would have turned down millions of dollars just to be a consultant to Bryce Young? And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, why didn't Bryce make that call? Because Bryce didn't draft Bryce. Who's the one that's invested in Bryce? The Carolina Panthers are. You think this is going to hurt Bryce Young any if he's going to make $5 million next year. So he's not going to make bukus of money but behind this. But I can tell you what, anybody that watches this show or watches any of the other shows and they understand, you get this guy the right tools, he can be successful. As I said, do I think Dave Canellis is the answer? I don't know. But I can tell you this, I haven't seen anything that has impressed me over the last 2 games that shows me he's even a quarterback whisperer. I'm not seeing it. Because here's the thing. I did not see enough motion. I didn't see enough creative runs. I didn't see enough creative rollouts for Bryce. I didn't see enough designed runs. You heard me. Designed runs. You fake that handoff, block this way, and get Bryce swinging to the outside here. Guess what? Ain't nobody thinking Bryce is fixing to keep that thing. He can at least get you 10 yards because there's not going to be anyone over there. That's a fact. You get him some naked bootlegs, I guarantee you they would work. But even at that, if you can get him some of those and you get the tight ends going up the field, no creative play calls during this entire 2-game span. None. And I asked, Dave Canales, what have you been doing with Bryce? We don't need you to tap him on the shoulder and say it's going to be okay. We need you creating plays that is going to boost his confidence. This goes all the way back to when Tepper basically made the decision that this was the guy we were getting. And you didn't know what to do. You thought you were getting a guy that was 6'4", 6'5". All you got to do is put playmakers around him. And here's the thing. I'm never going to sit here and say that it was all Bryce's fault. Never. Just because C.J. Stroud is straight balling. And then you sit him on the bench. I hope you have a secondary plan here. And that plan needs to be Bryce Young needs to be on the phone with Drew Brees or another one of these short quarterbacks that had trouble, or even calling up Russell Wilson if he can remember that far back as to what he did to be successful, because it's been a while since Russ has been that successful of a quarterback. Now he did have a great campaign last year, 27-5, but I am of the attitude that there needs to be someone he can call. And I can tell you right now, our organization is a mess, you guys. It is a mess, a travesty. Now, before we wrap up, you guys, I love you. I think you guys are great. But here's the thing. We need to lay off Bryce. I will say that he has not read the blitz. He does not do a good job reading the blitz. I don't know if that's deliberate or whether the coaching staff is telling him, hey, don't worry about that. This play will work out whether they blitz or not. So with that being said, that needs to come. And a lot of other things need to come. But let me know what you guys think. Up over at Growlin' and Prowlin' on Facebook. Let me know if what you guys think of the show. Also comment down below if you subscribe to the show. That way I will know I can add you to the final 5 of the first 100. Also go to my Instagram and let me know that you enjoy the things that you see. But until the next time, keep prowling the airwaves and keep growling out. Keep pounding.